Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely overturn everything we think we know about getting older. We usually view loneliness as this deeply personal struggle, right? Just an inevitable, kind of sad part of aging. Well, a groundbreaking new study flips that script entirely. It reveals that loneliness is actually a structural, manufactured problem. It is heavily influenced by the environments we build and the societies we structure, which means this issue goes way, way beyond individual psychology.
To really wrap our heads around this, just consider this staggering statistic coming out of Portugal. Right now, there are over 190 older adults for every 100 young people. Now, while that makes Portugal one of Europe's most aged societies, which, by the way, is a massive triumph of modern medicine and public health, it also exposes a completely silent epidemic. Population aging is literally one of the most significant transformations of the 21st century, but beneath the surface of all these vast demographic changes, the mental health of older adults is quietly deteriorating.
Section 1. A rapidly aging society.
Section 2. Isolation versus loneliness. Before we dive any deeper, we absolutely have to clear up a massive myth. Social isolation and loneliness, they are not the same thing. Isolation is basically just a head count. It's a literal, objective lack of contacts. And hey, you can be isolated but perfectly happy. Loneliness, on the other hand, is that agonizing, purely subjective feeling that you have no meaningful connections. You could be living in a packed care facility and still feel it. It's that deep internal perception that your relationships are just completely insufficient, which perfectly explains why people with seemingly decent social networks still experience such profound pain.
Section 3. The Coimbra perspective.
So to figure out why this actually happens, researchers zoomed in on the municipality of Coimbra in Portugal. It's a fantastic testing ground because it has this mix of heavy urban centers right alongside hard-to-reach rural areas. And the resulting study, published in the Journal of Critical Social Sciences in Review, took a totally different approach to analyzing this vulnerability. Instead of just surveying older adults, they went straight to the people fighting this crisis every single day.
They conducted in-depth interviews with 6 community professionals. We're talking about psychologists, social workers, gerontologists, and emergency medical technicians. And the level of expertise here is incredible. Almost all of them have over 2 decades of experience on the front lines. These are the folks who are literally walking into the homes, taking the 911 calls, and seeing the raw reality of aging behind closed doors. Because they talked to them, the researchers captured a totally unprecedented angle on the loneliness epidemic.
And what emerged from these interviews was a complete revelation. They identified a phenomenon they called structural loneliness. The big takeaway? This isolation isn't some personal failing. It's an ecological issue systematically manufactured by our society. It's the collision of a person's life history, their socioeconomic status, their physical neighborhood, and ultimately, how our institutions totally fail them.
Section 4. The 5 dimensions of loneliness. These frontline workers actually mapped out 5 interconnected dimensions that trap older adults in isolation. And the thing is, these aren't just separate buckets. They trigger one another in this terrible downward spiral. So let's explore how these layers stack up to build these invisible walls around our aging population.
The very first dimension is critical life transitions. Think about the cascading biographical losses that happen over time. Getting older brings this brutal sequence of disruptions. First, you retire and lose your work identity. Then your health might start to decline. After that, your mobility drops. Each one of these steps strips away a little more of a person's sense of usefulness and belonging, which sets the stage for some really deep vulnerability.
And tragically, this often culminates in widowhood. As one gerontologist in the study pointed out, losing a partner doesn't just mean profound grief. For so many people, it means losing the absolutely only daily human presence they had. It's basically the complete structural collapse of their social world. The silence in the home just becomes absolute.
Now, adding to all that personal grief is the second dimension, fragile networks. Traditional family safety nets are tearing apart. Kids have these crazy, demanding modern jobs. Smaller household structures are the norm, or, especially in countries like Portugal, high emigration rates mean children move away entirely. Even when families desperately want to help, geography and modern labor demands simply make it impossible.
Which leads us right into the third dimension, territorial constraints. We hear the phrase aging in place thrown around a lot, right? The idea of staying in your own home. But what happens when that place actually becomes a prison? If you live up a steep hill or face flights of stairs you can no longer climb and have zero access to public transit, well, you aren't really aging in place. You're physically trapped.
And you really can't talk about physical barriers without hitting on the 4th dimension, socioeconomic inequality. Poverty isn't just about missing meals.
it actively blocks social participation. As one social worker painfully illustrated, if you literally cannot afford the taxi fare to get to the community center, or even the price of a coffee when you finally get there, you just stay home, period.
Then we have the fifth and final dimension, which is honestly a dangerous kind of cultural blindness: institutional invisibility. Because our society falsely normalizes sadness and withdrawal as just a natural part of aging, our systems completely ignore lonely people until it becomes a full-blown emergency. We simply don't intervene until there's a physical fall, a total mental health crisis, or severe distress. So when you put all these pieces together, from those biographical hurdles all the way down to the institutional failures, you realize how totally absurd it is to just tell a lonely older adult to go out and make friends. How on earth can they, when they're mourning, physically trapped in their homes, unable to afford transit, and completely ignored by the system? It demands a completely different approach from all of us.
Section 5. Fixing structural loneliness.
But listen, there is definitely hope here. Because the moment we identify loneliness as a structural problem, we can actually start building structural solutions. We have to shift from being reactive to being proactive. This study outlines clear, practical actions. We need active neighborhood-based outreach to find older adults before a crisis hits. We need to expand community mental health services. And critically, we have to invest in accessible local transportation to break down those physical barriers so people can actually reach these resources.
Ultimately, the insights from Coblimber's frontline workers offer us a really vital mirror. Loneliness isn't just about an aging body, it's about the invisible architecture of the world surrounding that body. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Are we going to continue to accept isolation as just a natural part of growing old, or will we finally choose to fix the design flaws in our communities?